FantasySky.com. Get ready to win your league.
Where fantasy becomes reality.
Now here's Frank, Scott, Chris, and Adam.
Busy times indeed. Let's talk about it. Welcome into Fantasy Baseball today. Frank Stanfield joined by Scott Witt and Chris Towers. Scott, what's up, man? How was your weekend? I know you're a big weekend guy. Do any drafts?
I did do a draft. I'm sharing a team with a friend of mine, Greg Lathrop, a main event team for the NFBC. Did a draft earlier today.
How you feeling?
I feel good about it.
Very nice.
Yeah.
So, tell us about it. I know you're itching to tell us about it.
Well, we picked sixth. We took Bieber, of course. And we got Corey Seager in round two. This is a 15-teamer, by the way. Corey Seager in round two. Felt like a little bit of a reach, but all the pitchers I thought were worth taking in round two were gone. And then we got lucky getting DJ LeMahieu in round three and Alex Bregman in round four, which, again, 15-team league, picking six. That's really late for Bregman. That's outside the top 50. Of course, at this point, we have three hitters in our first four rounds. Very, very much unlike me. So next four picks, we went Strasburg, Plesac, Greinke, Wheeler. So we still ended up with 5 of my top 30, I think. And
pretty good for a 15-team league.
Yeah, feeling strong in the pitching categories. We're a little light at saves. We might be a little light in home runs. I don't know. It depends how big Seager is this year and how big Will Myers is. Will Myers ended up being our fourth hitter we took. But a lot of upside on this team. We got four of the biggest rookies in Andrew Vaughn, Jared Kelnick, Alex Kirilloff, and Wander Franco. So we got those stats. I mean, Vaughn's probably going to make the club, I think, at the start of the year, probably. But there's a good chance they're all up before the end of April, and that could be windfall for us. I don't know. I like this team. I like it a lot.
Very nice. That's a great dynasty team you got there, Scott. So hopefully it works out well for you. I also participated in the main event this weekend over at the NFBC. And I, too, did not have my second starting pitcher until round 6. I think it turned out all right. I actually got Zach Plesac in round 8. So you took him in the 6th in your draft. I got him in the 8th in mine. That's the furthest I've seen him fall. I think it was pick 107. So we'll see. Good luck to you, and we'll see what happens, man. I'm pretty excited about it. Chris is here as well. And, Chris, I will give you the opportunity to berate me to start the podcast because I am a fraud. I am a big phony. That's all I am.
Yep.
Nothing more, nothing less.
Yep. No, that's true.
I purchased Max Scherzer in the 12-team Tout Wars head-to-head points salary cap draft for $31, and I have no idea why.
Now, I'll say this. Say what you want about me. I have many flaws as a person, but when I have a take, I stand by that take no matter how stupid it is. So you're all like, oh, Max Scherzer's terrible. Nobody should draft him. And then you go draft him. Spend $31 on a pitcher who you think is terrible. Unbelievable.
Now,
where are your convictions?
Now, wait, Frank. Frank. Isn't this this is a head-to-head points league, right?
It is a head-to-head points league, correct.
Is the scoring way different from CBS? Are pitchers deflated or something?
It is the CBS scoring system.
Well, dude, you got Scherzer for only 31. You weren't a part of the head-to-head points salary cap draft we did. Scherzer might have gone for more than 50.
Yeah, I think so.
31 for a second round caliber pitcher. I know he didn't go for less than 40. I'm obviously being facetious. That's a very good pickup. You got the 4th best starting pitcher in fantasy baseball.
He could be
for $31.
And I have acknowledged that all along. It could blow up in my face. I really do feel terrible about it because I hate, saying one thing all draft season. But the price,
there's a price for every player. There is no player in fantasy baseball who you should. This is something I was talking about Robbie Ray. the other day on Twitter and how he's throwing like 3 miles per hour harder this spring. And everyone's like, oh, I'll never draft Robbie Ray. And like, okay, cool. I feel like everybody thinks Robbie Ray's been a lot worse than he actually has been in his career. I think last year was the first time in like 4 years where he's had an ERA above 4.5. But like, he's going outside of the top 250, top 300 right now. He's averaging 96 miles per hour with his fastball. Like, if there is no price you would be willing to pay to have Robbie Ray on your team, you're playing fantasy baseball wrong.
Yep. And we will talk about Robbie Ray a little bit later on. So I'm happy you brought him up, but he has been very interesting so far in spring training. And yeah, look, the reason I wound up with Scherzer, I had a plan. I wanted either Lucas Giolito or Aaron Nola heading into this salary cap draft. And I was willing to spend right around 30, maybe, a little bit more, 30 to 35. Giolito goes for 36. Aaron Nola goes for 38. And I was in on the bidding on both of them, and I just didn't want to go that far. So Max Scherzer, if you told me I could get Max Scherzer for $7 less than Aaron Nola, okay. At that point, I'm willing to invest. So I wind up with him. Not exactly happy about it, but I'm happy that you were able to call me out, Chris, because I do deserve.
Do they use head-to-head points lineups, just 9 hitters, or do they use roto lineups with 14 hitters?
It's 14 hitters, and then it's 9 pitchers, but it's 7 starting pitchers and 2 relief pitchers.
Yeah. Next, you should have done that head-to-head points salary cap draft with us, because I think you may regret not going heavier at starting pitcher in that format, especially.
I mean, I wound up with pretty good depth. I will say that. I don't have another quote unquote ace, but I wound up with Max Fried. I got Chris Paddock. I got Charlie Morton. I got Aaron Savale. I got Marcus Stroman. So it's all right. It could have been better. We'll
Scott hates it. That's a Chris Towers lineup, pitching staff.
Today on the show, outside of talking about my teams and Scott's teams and Chris making fun of me, we will do a quick recap of a head-to-head categories mock draft that you guys did late last week. Some people have been emailing in and saying, oh, well, you're doing a head-to-head points mock. You're doing this Roto's live salary cap draft. What about us head-to-head categories players? So I'm gonna look out for you. I'll help you out a little bit here. ADP differences from other sites. So we'll compare some ADP from ESPN and Yahoo to CBS as well. And some news and notes from the weekend, including 4 late-round starting pitchers that we need to talk about. Robbie Ray is one of those players. So let's start off with this head-to-head categories mock draft that you guys did. 12 teams. For hitters, it's 1 of each infield spot, 3 starting outfielders, 2 utility spots. And then for pitchers, I believe it is 2 starting pitchers, 2 relief pitchers, and just 4 pitcher spots, right?
Yeah, that's right.
So I thought this draft was pretty interesting because it felt like you guys both tried something new. And we'll start with your team, Chris. And you had the second pick, and it seems like you went with the Marmol strategy. So you started with Mookie Betts, Adalberto Mondesi, Manny Machado as your first 3 picks. And then you come back around Tim Anderson, and you already have Mondesi. So Tim Anderson goes into 1 util spot. You pick up El Marte as your second baseman. Then Keston Hiura in the 6th. That's your second util spot. Then you get Lourdes Gurriel and your boy Byron Buxton. Do you think you have enough speed on your team?
Yeah. I like to refer to this as the Luis Castillo strategy. Just drafting all the middle infield. I was trying to think of like a really fast utility player to really get the analogy right, but I couldn't. So if you got anybody, Alfredo Amezaga. It's the Amezaga strategy. I think that fits in with the Marmol strategy. Yeah, I went into the draft thinking I wasn't gonna get steals. My thought was steals were gonna be the one thing I avoided, and then it just kind of like it's a categories league, and Adalberto Mondesi was there at 23rd overall. He's my number 15 player in Roto, so I kind of couldn't pass on that. And then, at that point, you can kind of just stop going after steals once you get there, but I went in knowing I was going to punt something, stolen bases, saves, starting pitching, one of those things. And once I got stolen bases, I kind of pivoted to, well, I'm going to punt starting pitching and go with the Marmol strategy. And so that's kind of how I ended up there. And, the thing about, a Marmol strategy is you need to be in position to dominate the non-starting pitching categories. And I I don't know if I have, power might be an issue for this team. It's going to depend on, Keston here really clicking. But if he does, I think I've got a decent chance to dominate several hitting categories, and stolen bases are going to be among them. So I think it's an okay strategy.
As for your pitching, let's talk about who you wound up with. You took Edwin Diaz and Raisel Iglesias in rounds 9 and 10, and your pitchers overall turned out to be those two plus Jordan Hicks, German Marquez, Andrew Heaney, TJ Antone, Framber Valdez, who I think you got in the 17th round, Alex Reyes, Dustin May, Emmanuel Clase from the Cleveland Indians, and Mitch Keller from the Pirates. So you have a lot of relievers and a starting pitcher that you can use on the road. How do you feel?
I'm fine with it. Obviously it's not perfect, but I think the strategy there is I think 3 closers. I think Jordan Hicks is going to be the Cardinals closer. He's looked awesome in spring. So I've got 3 closers, and then there's a very specific type of reliever that I'm going for otherwise. And TJ Antone actually might not be a reliever. He might have that 5th starting job in Cincinnati, but Antone, Reyes, Dustin May, I really like the guy who might be able to give me 90 to 100 innings of really, really, really good ratios. And a ton of strikeouts. So those guys help supplement it. And, I think like Framber Valdez could be a real key if he ends up pitching well. This could be a lot better.
Are you worried about not meeting the weekly innings minimum?
I mean, I've got 1, 2.
What is that minimum, by the way, Scott?
3, 4, 5 starting pitchers.
25.
It's 25.
Okay.
It's 25. I kind of feel like I want to feel safe that I'm not going to get I'm not going to fall short of the innings minimum. I kind of feel like I need 4 starting pitcher. I need to get 4 starts in my lineup, not necessarily 4 different starting pitchers, but 4 starts.
I've got 4 starts in my lineup coming out of the draft, plus at least one other guy who will be starting coming out. Because Framber Valdez, we don't know if he'll be available by week 1, but if he's not, I can throw Mitch Keller in there, maybe Dustin May. We still don't know exactly what his role is going to be. So it would be Marquez, TJ Antone, Framber Valdez / Dustin May / Mitch Keller, and then Andrew Heaney. So I think innings I can get there. I think if I have, like you said, I think 4 starts, you should be able to get 20 innings out of those guys. And then you've got, 4 other pitchers who can get 5.
And you mentioned that you have Jordan Hicks, who you think is going to be the closer, and you also got Alex Reyes. So between those two, I assume you locked up the closer role. Alex Reyes has looked really good in spring training as well, although they want to use him in a few different roles. So we'll see what happens with Alex Reyes. Scott, you would never use a strategy like this, right? On the pitching side, at least. I feel like you're very anti-Marmol.
No, I won it. I think Marmol's strategy made sense when there was more differentiation between hitters than there is today. I think it's hard to, especially when you're talking in week-long segments. I think it's really difficult to assure yourself that you're going to win those categories consistently enough to punt on wins and strikeouts. Basically, I mean, you might win strikeouts occasionally, but it's obviously not going to be a strength when you're going up with a team with a normal allotment of starting pitchers.
So let's take a look at what you did instead. 2 very different strategies. Chris used that Marmol strategy. Scott had the 12th pick. And this isn't normal for you either, Scott, because usually you like to come away with at least 1 starting pitcher in the first rounds, maybe even 2. And you started with Christian Yelich and Trevor Story. You still wound up with 3 starting pitchers and 3 hitters after your first 6 rounds. So Yelich and Story at the 1-2 turn. Then you grab Brandon Woodruff and Kenta Maeda at the 3-4. Luis Robert, which someone sent me this over the weekend. Now it's Robert again. So that's what we will go with. Luis Robert, the outfielder.
Who was the someone? You're just trusting random someone?
Yeah, it seemed like a reputable article snippet from somewhere. So we're going to go with Luis Robert for now. And I'll look that up after this podcast. But you got Robert, and then you got Zach Plesac at the 5-6 turn. So walk me through this first 6 picks. Do you feel all right about your starting pitching at that point?
No, I mean, I wish it was stronger coming out of this draft for sure. I'm not thrilled with it. I think So my starting pitchers into again Maeda is my number 1 in round 3. That's taking him that early. I don't love, but I kind of was forced to after missing out the first 2 rounds. Woodruff is my number 2. Zach Plesac as my number 3. And again, this is a 12-team league, not a 14-team league. Who's my number 4? Oh, Sandy Alcantara. Oh, I mean, I like him as a breakout, but I want him as my number 5 at most, not my number 4. So I think this format, for the same reason you could potentially try the Marmol strategy in head-to-head categories, I think you can. I think it makes a little more sense to go after high-end closers at this format. It's generally something I don't like to do, but at this format would be the one I'm most likely to do it in, and kind of to make up for the shortcomings of not having a guy who's going to strike out 220 batters plus in all likelihood. I went with Karinchak in round 10 and Rosenthal in round 11, 2 potential 100 plus strikeout guys in relief. So that kind of makes up for the lack of not having as many high-end starting pitchers as I want. I'd still rather have the starting pitchers, but that's the best I could do given the circumstances. Yeah, I just wanted to try it. I mean, for a categories league, me picking 12th and Yelich and Story were both there. It's like I'm not used to seeing either of these guys at this point. And hey, what if I took them both? Let's see if I could make that work. And I don't hate it, but I'm a little uneasy about my pitching situation. And if I was doing it for real, I wouldn't have even tried it. I would have at least taken 1 pitcher there. I probably would have taken Yelich and Bauer as opposed to Yelich and Story. But it was weird. Chris mentioned he was surprised Adalberto Mondesi made it to him at the end of round 2. I feel like everybody in this particular draft had punting steals in mind. It's something we've talked about on the podcast where we don't like doing it in Roto, but in this format, giving up that one category that's expensive and kind of creates shortcomings in other parts of your lineup. It might be worth doing in this format. And it seemed like everybody went in with that in mind because the steals guy were quite reasonable, beginning with Yelich and Story making it to the round 1-2 turn, and then Luis Robert. I don't know about that. Luis, the White Sox guy. End of round 5, last pick of round 5 in a categories league, a 5x5 league. That was shocking to me. So
I love that.
Yeah.
I mean, I said I might not punt steals in this format if they just fell in my lap, and I feel like that's exactly what happened in this draft between those 3 picks.
Again, that is our head-to-head category draft, our most recent one. We did that last week, and you can find the results on the website, cbssports.com. I will put the draft results for that in the podcast description as well, so you can go back and follow along to see what we were talking about here. Let's quickly promote a few things. If you want your fill of sports content every single day for free, you should be watching CBS Sports HQ. CBSSports.com/live is the link to find that, or download it on your favorite devices. I've got an Xbox. I've got 2 different Xboxes, and I have CBS Sports on both of them. So you can watch HQ on any device where you are streaming. And reminder that drafts are here. And a lot of drafts just happened this past weekend. I'm sure a lot of people have them coming up this week, next weekend, even next week during the week leading up to the start of the season, which we are now inside 2 weeks of the season starting. That is just phenomenal. But don't go to your draft unprepared. Download our draft prep guide now. It's for free, and the link for that is cbssports.com/FBB draft kit. It includes all of our sleepers, breakouts, busts, rankings, analysis, and much more. So you go to that link, you just punch in your email address, and you'll get that sent over to you, and you can use it throughout your drafts. And some update on our listener leagues. Continue to send in your cropped Photoshops as submission for these listener leagues. Just email us. That's fantasybaseball@cbsi.com. And we've already got a ton. Continue to send them. They are great. If you don't have Photoshop skills, that's all right as well. You can email us in and let us know why you deserve to be in one of our listener leagues. But the deadline for those is actually, when you are hearing this, will be tomorrow, Tuesday, March 23rd is the deadline. So get those in, and I will reveal the winners on this Thursday's podcast. Reminder that we have 21 spots available between the 2 leagues. The dates for those drafts will be next Sunday, March 28th at 6 p.m. Eastern time. That's for the head-to-head categories for the People League. That is a 16-team league. And then the head-to-head points podcast league, that is a 12-team points league. That draft will be the very next night. That's on Monday, March 29th at 8 p.m. Eastern time. Make sure that you can make either draft that you want to be part of before sending in your submission. That is obviously very key to what we are trying to accomplish. Some news and notes from the weekend. Dave Roberts said he projects catcher Will Smith to start, quote, somewhere around 90 games this season. He also had this to say, I think that Will, with Austin, Barnes that is, the combo, the sum, is very good, and I'll take that sum against any combo in all of baseball, production-wise, offensively, and defensively. So, Scott, I know when we first started doing this back in October or November, you were actually worried about this possibility with Will Smith. How far do we drop him in our catcher rankings?
Well, I had him as my number 7 catcher, and so I'm just going to leave him as my number 7 catcher. Yeah, that's pretty much what I have to say about that. Yeah, no, they did this with Yasmani Grandal when he was there, and he was consistently one of the best catchers in baseball, and yet they'd start him less than any of us wanted them to. And
he started 129 and 140, or he played 129 and 140 games. He got 482 plate appearances in 518. He was playing quite a bit.
What year?
His last 2 years in LA.
Okay. Well, he still started less than other catchers who were drafted in his range, and it was frustrating. And then he went to Milwaukee and he played more than ever, put up career numbers. And yeah, I mean, he only had 1 year with 130 games played prior to 2018. So he wasn't playing as much as we wanted. And, I don't know that he's really going to start as few as 90. I think when push comes to shove, Dave Roberts will run him out there more than that. But I think for the number 3 catcher, you're going to be disappointed in the volume.
I pointed out when we did our catcher preview that Will Smith he started 17 of 18 postseason games, but that was with the universal DH, which they don't have in the National League this year. Chris, I know that you were much more excited about Will Smith than Scott was. Will you be dropping him in your rankings?
Yeah, I think I probably have to. I'm trying to figure out, I think it was 2018 when Austin Barnes was playing a ton. No, it was 2017. I want to see what they have to say, what he said going into 2018, because I feel like there were probably some similar quotes. We'll see.
We shall see. So, I mean, how far do you plan to drop him? To drop Will Smith, Chris?
I have him at number 2. I will probably move him to number 5. Yeah.
Okay, so that would push him behind Wilson Contreras, Salvador Perez, and Yasmani Grandal. Bobby Witt Jr. has been reassigned to low A ball. Yikes.
Yeah, I thought it's not surprising that they decided not to make him the starting second baseman after all. I mean, he's 20. He's only played at rookie ball, and it was less than 40 games, and he didn't even perform that well. So it was really aggressive even considering him. I didn't think it would happen so soon because the way Dayton Moore was talking, it sounded like they really wanted to challenge him until they were convinced he couldn't handle the job. And, there's still a few more games before they'd have to make that decision. But, ultimately it's to our benefit that they decided it earlier than later because Witt's ADP was shooting up. And now I would say, I wrote before the talk of him maybe capturing the second base job, I wrote that Witt was the 6th best minor leaguer to stash behind guys like Wander Franco and Jared Kelenic and Mackenzie Gore, Matt Manning, a couple others. And I think that's about right now because, sending him to low A ball, he's not going to be somebody who comes up in late April if that's where he's starting out. He's going to have to climb a few levels first, and I think it's still possible we don't see him at all this year.
Yep.
And the comp, I guess, would be probably Juan Soto. If you're talking about moving that fast, he started out 2018 at Class A, 16 games, 15 in High A, 8 at Double A before making his. So it wouldn't be totally unprecedented. You're talking about Soto was also 19 that year. Witt is 19, right?
20. He's 20.
20. Okay, so he's actually a year younger, but didn't get. Although Soto had only played 32 games the prior year, so but he's also maybe the best young hitter in Major League Baseball history. So Bobby Witt probably might need a little bit more than 36 games.
Yeah.
And someone pointed out that he has a 33% strikeout rate in spring training. So he's doing some fun things, 12 pitch walk against Julio Urias, hitting all these home runs, 480 feet. But Bobby Witt, he still has things to work on, striking out that much here in spring training.
Plus defense.
Yeah. He's got to work on a few things.
Actually, they liked his defense. I know you're just making a joke, but that was one of the things they were really happy about.
Sticking with the Royals, Salvador Perez got a 4-year extension for those who have him in keeper or dynasty leagues. So doesn't look like he's going anywhere. The Rockies officially purchased the contract of CJ Cron, and we spoke about him on last week's podcast on Friday and about how he is a rankings mover. He has looked really good in the spring so far and looks to be the starting first baseman for your Colorado Rockies. Steven Strasburg, who is dealing with a calf injury, threw 74 pitches over 5 innings in a simulated game on Friday. He was only scheduled to throw 60 pitches, so it was a welcoming sign that he was able to get through those 74, and apparently enough confidence for Scott to draft him in the 5th round of a 15-team league. So if you're trying to figure out where you should draft him, there you go. It's probably, if that's in a 12-team league, it's probably in the 6th. So you do the math. However many teams your league has. Drew Pomeranz has left forearm tightness of the San Diego Padres, and per Kevin Acee of the San Diego Union Tribune, Emilio Pagan has a good chance to close games for the Padres this season and has been the name most often mentioned by people within the organization as a potential closer. Scott, we spoke about every team's closer situation last week, and you still lean towards Mark Melancon. Even with this report, are you sticking with Melancon?
No, I would lean toward Pagan, but that's not the most reliable criteria, I guess. It's in the absence of any other criteria, it works for me. And certainly he was basically the closer down the stretch for the Rays 2 years ago. So he has some experience in the role, but it's still a situation where if you're playing in like a 15 team or something that deep, probably all 3 Padres relievers are going to be drafted, but Pagan should be the first one.
Yeah, Pagan had 2 saves last year as well for the Padres, and he had 20 saves back in 2019, as you mentioned, Scott, with the Tampa Bay Rays. AJ Casavel of MLB.com writes that it is a, quote, near certainty Dinelson Lamet will not be on the Padres opening day roster. He is likely to start on the injured list, which, Scott, you have been talking about quite a bit before. I guess there's still a chance Mackenzie Gore can make the team, but as of now, it looks like Adrian Morejon is going to be in the rotation for the Padres. Chris, how far does Dinelson Lamet have to fall for you to draft him if you are drafting today?
Well, I have him 119th at starting pitcher, and
overall, you mean?
Overall, not at starting pitcher. I have 119th overall. I think that's in like the 40 range at starting pitcher for me. So I do think I drafted him recently, within the last 2 weeks. But yeah, he has to fall outside of the first 10 rounds.
And the main event draft that I did this weekend, a 15-team league, Dinelson Lamet went at pick 169. And in the salary cap draft, which was a 12-team league, head-to-head points, he went for $6 in that. So if you wanted some kind of indication of what his price tag is, again, that is Dinelson Lamet.
The fluctuation is weird there.
What do you think?
We don't know that much more than we did when he was being drafted in like the 65 to 70 range, back like a month and a half ago. It's weird that he might be falling 100 picks now. And then if he was there at 140 or 150, I'd be very happy to take him.
I think people presumed, opening day wasn't like either he'd be fine in spring training or he won it, but that opening day wasn't really. It wasn't a question of whether he'd be ready for the start of the year. So it's kind of catching people off guard that he isn't. But it's because he's behind in his progression and not because he suffered a setback or anything. So I'm actually getting to the point where I'm kind of okay with drafting Lamet.
Yeah.
I have him as my 35th starting pitcher now, but I have him ahead of Sonny Gray, who also may not be ready for the start of the season.
Well, I just think you look at like that range and like, well, Lance McCullers doesn't exactly have a rock solid history of getting through 140 innings. Joe Musgrove doesn't have a rock solid history of April through August.
Yeah,
Sonny
I think
Gray's
that's
got a
the right
back
range.
injury. Patrick Corbin can't throw 9 miles an hour. Julio Urias has never thrown more than 120 innings.
I moved Corbin way down. I got
I've got Corbin
Carrasco.
I've got Corbin 39th. I probably will move him down, but like just that like Dylan Bundy, Jose Urquidy, Kevin Gausman. We are not talking about guys in that range of the draft who you can look at and say, yes, steady, dependable, predictable performers. So, yeah, Lamet's got as much upside as any of them, and only slightly more risk.
Brendan Rodgers is expected to miss a month with his hamstring injury. Reds pitcher Michael Lorenzen was diagnosed with a right shoulder strain after exiting Saturday's B game. That's now Sonny Gray, Michael Lorenzen, and TJ Antone, who are currently dealing with ailments for the Cincinnati Reds pitching staff. Chris, your boy, I'm sorry, man. Oscar Mercado was assigned to minor league camp on.
I might as well not even play this season. All those picks, I had multiple people on Twitter throw that one at me. All those picks at 340 or later are really going to come back to haunt me. I am screwed.
Were people really calling you out for that?
I got like 3.
That's hilarious.
Yeah, it happens.
Does this mean Ahmed Rosario is going to get the majority of the time out there? Because he had that 3-error game, and he's played, I think, a couple times since then, and it's been less headline worthy in a bad way. But yeah, that's surprising. Yeah,
Bradley Zimmer is the other name that I saw mentioned playing center field. Remember that guy, Bradley Zimmer? Wow. Indians could use some outfield upgrades there. Good thing you traded away Francisco Lindor.
I mean, it was true 5 months ago, and it's exactly as true as it was on the last day of last season that Cleveland could use some outfield upgrades.
Yeah. Why didn't they ask for, not that Dom Smith is a good defender, but someone else from the Mets, Smith or Brandon Nimmo, or they're not going to.
You don't know that they didn't.
Yeah, that's true. That's fair. Joey Votto has returned to the Reds camp after his bout with COVID. So looks like he's going to be ready to go for the start of the season. Former top prospect Brent Honeywell will start Monday for the Tampa Bay Rays. It is his first game action since September of 2017. So hopefully Brent Honeywell can make it through healthy. We're rooting for you, bud. Bryce Wilson. Who's this guy? Just kidding. Having a solid spring for the Atlanta Braves, a 1.98 ERA, a 1.39 whip, and some are saying that he may even make the rotation. Scott, what do you think about that? Your boy Bryce Wilson.
Yeah, I think Kyle Wright had the advantage going in, and he's been not
great,
bad this spring. I mean, you're talking Wilson's stats there. There haven't been a lot of strikeouts, and it's a 1.4 whip. So I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't know. Is there any chance Drew Smyly doesn't make the rotation? I haven't heard anything along those lines, but they're not going to get 130 innings out of Drew Smyly this year. I don't think so. It might make sense to have him in the bullpen for stretches.
Mm-hmm. I mean, based on what they're paying Drew Smyly, I think they would like him to be a starter, at least for the beginning of the season, while Mike Soroka is out. And then maybe once Soroka comes back, then they can, move things around a little bit with Drew Smyly. But I would assume, at least to begin the season, Smyly will be in the rotation.
We'd rather see Bryce Wilson and Kyle Wright than Drew Smyly, right? Like, I know there was like that 2-week period when Drew Smyly was exciting, but like
Drew Smyly's still kind of exciting.
I like Drew Smyly's strikeout potential more than any of the others.
Chris is not about it. He's like, nope, I don't want anything to do with Drew Smyly.
Well, I mean, it's Drew Smyly. Like, last season wasn't his first season.
I know, but
it was his healthiest season in a long time. He was throwing 2 miles.
But he was
harder.
healthy in 2019. He threw 114 innings. They were just
he was still working his way back from Tommy John surgery and didn't have his velocity back. He was still he did not feel like he was all the way healthy.
All right.
Drew Smyly. I have him in Scott White's Dynasty League if you want him, Chris. Let's talk. You can send me Joe Musgrove.
I think you read that wrong, Frank. I think you read the room wrong on that one.
Yep, you're probably right. Rangers top prospect, which I also found out, big pronunciation weekend. Josh Young, not Jung. Josh Young, top prospect for the Rangers, was diagnosed with a stress fracture in his left foot on Saturday and will be out for the next 6 to 8 weeks while recovering from surgery. If you are watching on the video side, don't go anywhere. If you are listening to the podcast, we're going to take a quick break. But when we return, we're going to talk about 4 starting pitchers that are going very late in drafts that you need to know about. So let's talk about these guys. Robbie Ray, you brought up the name earlier, Chris, and he dominated the Tigers on Friday. 5 1/3, 4 hits, 1 earned run, 1 walk, 7 strikeouts with 16 whiffs on 73 pitches. He averaged 96.2 miles per hour on his fastball. Last year, that was 93.9 miles per hour. The ADP for Robbie Ray is 300. He went at pick 231 in my draft on Saturday. And I agree with you. Like, this is the perfect time to buy into Robbie Ray. I understand that it's the American League East and his floor is terrible. I mean, 2 weeks into the season, this guy gets blown up. You're dropping him. Okay, that's fine. It doesn't cost anything. Even if you have to take him at pick 250, we've seen this guy have top 50 upside in baseball. Top 50 player.
He was a top 150 pick last year. You know, he was in 2019. He had a slightly above average ERA, 4.34, and he had 235 strikeouts. The year before, he had a 3.93 ERA with 165 strikeouts and 123 and 2/3 innings. There has been one season in the last 4 where Robbie Ray was just a disaster, and it was last season. But I actually think, like, based on what we've seen, the floor actually isn't that low. You know, he's been a starting caliber fantasy option most of his career. So I don't know. I think people are, maybe there's just like in people's heads, he has like multiple seasons with an ERA over 5 or something, but only once in the last 4 years has it been over 4.34. And it was 12 appearances last season. And this isn't like last spring. I remember like, oh, Robbie Ray's working on his command. He's moved on one side of the rubber or the other, and he hasn't walked. Like I don't. That's nothing. Like it's right. You are right to just dismiss that because like every pitcher is working on their command. You know, like this is actually a tangible thing. He's throwing significantly harder than he ever has.
I remember our guy Adam Mazer. His bold prediction was that Robbie Ray wins the National League Cy Youngs. That didn't happen. He wound up in the American League.
Did not win the AL Cy Young either.
My biggest objections to Ray prior to last year, so take the worst season out of the equation, was whip killer and 5-inning pitcher, which to me made him difficult to use to get the big strikeout total that he was likely going to deliver. Because obviously in a roto league, you're trying to protect your whip. In a points league, you really need those innings. So that if we're saying his upside is 2019, 2018, you know, obviously where he's going, there's not really any downside to taking that, but I want there to be more upside to that. And maybe because he's throwing harder, there is. You know, it's just walks have always been such an issue. Home runs have always been such an issue. And then volume, throwing so many pitches because of all the walks, because of all the strikeouts. That's always been an issue too.
Someone else who is throwing harder and has, you know, he has been a fantasy star in the past, even better than Robbie Ray at times. James Paxton, he made his debut on Sunday, his spring debut, 4 1/3, 2 hits, 1 earned, 2 walks, 8 strikeouts, and apparently maxed out his velocity at 97 miles per hour. This is someone who last year dealt with back injuries. He was only averaging 92 miles per hour with his fastball with the Yankees, of course, now with the Seattle Mariners. Scott, what do you think about James Paxton? Are you buying into this at all? And who would you rather have between him and Robbie Ray?
I would rather have Paxton. We've seen Paxton be close to ace level more regularly than we have Ray. And I was frankly very surprised by this performance for Paxton. He had been pitching sim games up to this point, so we didn't really know what was going on with him. But like, no team really wanted him this offseason. He went to a non-contender, the Mariners, for like $8 million. So, I mean, that seemed like a signal to me. Wow, there's he might not be able to bounce back from whatever was wrong with his arm last year. But the kind of velocity he showed, striking out 8 of the 16 batters he faced, very good signs. Very good signs. You still can't trust him to be durable, but I mean, at the price tag, definitely somebody I need to start investing in a little more, I think.
Chris, would you rather have Paxton or Robbie Ray?
Paxton.
Yep.
Yeah, definitely, especially after this.
Mm-hmm. Yep. Very encouraging sign for one James Paxton. Hopefully he can continue to build off of this. Another lefty. Wow, I didn't even plan this. All these pitchers we're talking about are
all lefties. Yeah,
that's great. Carlos Rodon. I took him in the reserve rounds of my Tout Wars salary cap draft because after I saw what he did on Sunday, 4 shutout innings with 5 strikeouts, he's now up to 9 shutout with 10 strikeouts and 0 walks this spring. I mean, that is the biggest takeaway for Rodon. The fact that he is getting whiffs, getting swings and misses, and he's not walking anyone. And the fastball velocity for Rodon on Sunday, 93.9 miles per hour. That is harder than even when he was at his best. When he first came into the league, he averaged low 93. So, Scott, any takeaways here from Rodon?
I thought for sure you're going to go to Chris for that one. No, I mean, that's...
I gotta go to Chris with the next one. It's tomorrow.
Okay, you pointed out, I think, all the critical. I think Chris always wanted Carlos Rodon to be a Marlin, so that's why you don't know the whole backstory there.
That is taking me back.
In addition to no walks in his 9 innings, only 4 hits in the 9 innings, 10 strikeouts, and the velocity being the biggest thing. I mean, like, it was Tommy John surgery he was coming back from. So, something predictable, something with a reliable track record. In the pandemic shortened season, probably didn't have the chance to build up like you'd normally see from that injury. And so he had some major struggles. We saw that for Michael Fulmer too. Fulmer's velocity hasn't come back this spring. But if Rodon's has, then I think that's something to get excited about with a late round pick.
Mm-hmm. Especially going to get some starts against the Tigers in the American League Central and should have a great run support with the White Sox, obviously. So Carlos Rodon, he is now free. His ADP is almost 500.
He'd be the lowest in priority of the 3 lefties we talked about. Paxton, I think, would be a distant number 1 for me. And then Ray and Rodon would be more like your very last pick kind of flyers. But they're even if your draft doesn't go on long enough for you to consider them, which it probably doesn't in shallower 12-team type leagues. Definitely somebody guys are going to want to monitor their first turn or 2 through because the upside is there for them to contribute.
The last southpaw we need to talk about, Trevor Rogers from your Miami Marlins on Sunday. 5 innings, 2-run ball, 1 walk, 6 strikeouts, 14 whiffs for Trevor Rogers on 71 pitches. The fastball velocity, he averaged 94.6 miles per hour. Last year for Trevor Rogers, that was 93.6. Chris, give us a scouting report on your boy.
Yeah, he was a first-round pick, 13th overall in 2017, but he's never really had a ton of hype as a prospect. Last year, he was not even ranked last year by Baseball America, coming off of a year where he had 2.90 ERA. He's always had a lot of strikeouts in the minors. He's a big, tall lefty who throws hard. And last season, he had 39 strikeouts in 28 innings. The ERA was ugly, 6.11, but, with the kind of stuff he has, I think it was, Scott, was it Craig Mish we were talking about? Said he's the best left-handed pitching prospect the Marlins have developed since Dontrelle Willis.
That was the guy, yeah.
If you know anything about the Marlins, it's not a terribly inspiring list, although they had Scott Olsen.
They didn't draft Carlos Rodon after all.
That's true. But they did have Scott Olsen back in like 2006. He was a name of some renown at the time. No, Trevor Rogers, I think is being probably undervalued. I think is a good talent, and the fact that he's throwing so hard this spring is a really good sign, especially when you consider Miami's very recent track record in getting the most out of their starting pitchers. Last year their starting staff was actually quite good, and I think there's 3 consensus top 150 guys in ADP in there, and I think Trevor Rogers, I've got him 245. I think overall. So in the 60-ish range, I want to say at starting pitcher. I just moved him above the likes of he's Yeah, 80th actually at starting pitcher. So just above the likes of Trevor or Casey Mize and Tariq Skubal, who I think are more talented pitchers, but don't have a rotation spot to start the season. So, yeah, I like him.
The ADP for Trevor Rogers is 412.5. Chris, would you rather have Rogers or Rodon?
I would rather have Rogers.
What do you think, Scott?
I think ranking the 4 again, I go Paxton, Ray. I know it's kind of hard on Ray, but I do think he'd be second here. Paxton, Ray, Rogers, and Rodon.
I think that's the same order I have them in. But Rogers did have 3 pretty good swing and miss pitches last season too, and that was when he was throwing 94. So it's interesting.
Interesting indeed. Some observations that I noticed from drafts this past weekend mentioned that I got Zach Plesac at 107. I think the spring has scared some people off. Scott, obviously not you, and you've talked about that before. And Zach Plesac did have another start recently which was much better. So I think,
and with Ahmed Rosario in center field,
yeah, and that
ruined Bieber's start, but didn't ruin Plesac's.
Yeah, he
Better
did.
than Shane Bieber. You heard it here first.
There you go. The next Shane Bieber, Zach Plesac. We're just kidding. Please don't believe that. Carlos Carrasco went at pick 289 in my main event. So
That's way too late.
that is,
It's an overreaction.
Did not go that late in ours.
It never felt right for me throughout the draft. Like there was always something that I needed more. So I kept looking at him, but I couldn't pull the trigger. Carlos Carrasco went for $5 in that Tout Wars head-to-head points salary cap draft. So again, for reference, if you need it, Lamet went at pick 169 in that draft I did. He went for $6 in Tout Wars. Jared Kelenic went at pick 179, and Andrew Vaughn went at pick 182. They went to the same guy. So similar strategy to what you did, Scott, drafting both Kelenic and Andrew Vaughn, especially if you need the upside in one of those deeper leagues.
I'll point out this was round 14 and 15 where it went Kelenic and Vaughn back to back in a 15-team league. So like all these guys fell. It's not like we made a conscious effort to get all the top prospects who may not be up on opening day, but like they just all fell to us, and we were happy to take them because I do think they'll all be up. I really do think they'll all be up before the end of April. Kirilloff and Franco being the others, and there's a very good chance Vaughn is there on opening day.
You said you took Shohei Ohtani in the 11th round, right? Of a 15 league. Yes. I just checked. I got him in round 14. So
nice.
That's
very.
What's the usage? What's the usage rules for him in that format?
Same as CBS, dual eligible, and you just pick at the start of the week. Yeah, and we're planning to use him mostly as a hitter. I don't know. We haven't gotten to this. I don't know if it was in your news and notes, Frank, but Ohtani played like he started. He was the starting pitcher and the leadoff hitter today for the Angels. He was on base 3 times. He struck out 5 in 4 innings. Joe Madden has been saying they're not going to follow the old rules for him, where they took him out of the lineup the day before he started, took him out of the lineup the day after. He's kind of leaving it up to Ohtani to tell him when he wants out. And like
if he gets 500 plate appearances and 25 games started, like unfortunately in this format you're not going to be able to take advantage of both of those, but if he could actually do that for a full season, I mean, you're talking about
he's going to break
outrageously valuable player in especially a daily lineups league where you can start him in both.
And if he's starting that consistently, like I could see him hitting like 280 with 25 homers, 20 steals, like really hard to take out of the hitter spot. As much as everybody needs more high-end starting pitchers, it's going to be really hard to justify in a roto league, especially for the steals need. I'm kind of to the point now with Ohtani where like we were there in round 11 and I just could not let him get by us. Maybe I could have held out a few more rounds like you did, Frank, but I did not want to chance it.
He could be Austin Meadows as a hitter.
Yeah.
Maybe even more steals.
You started comparing everyone to Austin Meadows. Like, man, Austin Meadows is really good.
I know. Shohei Ohtani's really good. He's once in a century player. That's not an insult.
He has the ability to break fantasy baseball this season. Shohei Ohtani. I feel I acknowledge that upside, and kind of the way that Lamar Jackson broke fantasy football. I mean, we could be talking about Ohtani halfway through the season in a similar way. Again, leading off, reaching base 3 times, and in the same game, 5 strikeouts against one of the best lineups in baseball. They didn't have everyone in there.
Hit 101.
One of those strikeouts was against Fernando Tatis. Like, who does this? It's just absolutely crazy. The last name I wanted to bring up, Framber Valdez. He went at pick 218 in my draft this weekend. And in the reserve. I got him in the reserve rounds of the salary cap draft. So we went through, I don't know how many, I can't do the math off the top of my head, but 12 teams, 14 hitters, 9 pitcher spots, all those. We went through all those, and Framber Valdez did not get taken. And then I got him in the reserve rounds. So unlimited IL spots, sure, I'll take it. No issues there with Framber Valdez. Let's quickly wrap up with some ADP on other sites and just kind of compare and contrast. Some people have been asking us about, we use Fantasy Pros a lot, which is an aggregate of every site, but we don't specifically look at, okay, well, what's the ADP on ESPN versus Yahoo versus CBS? So let's just start off with ESPN. And I pointed out a few players here that caught my eye. Mookie Betts, they have as their number 1 player overall. Cody Bellinger, number 12. It's a little bit higher than ADP. Marcell Ozuna is at pick 30 in ADP in ESPN drafts, and that is 42.6 across all of the other formats. So Marcell Ozuna a little bit higher up there. Nolan Arenado, I mean, please do not draft him at pick 31 because that is his ADP on ESPN, and I think it's still too high on other.
I thought it was 30 over the weekend. Has it gotten moved down since then?
For Nolan Arenado, it's 31 on ESPN. It's 33 on CBS. It's 26 on Yahoo. It's 33.4 overall.
Still 42.7 at NFC, which is lower, a little more reasonable, but
he went in the
higher than I have him.
I added Arenado to my Bust 3.0, which came out Friday. Check it out on the site. He was one of the biggest additions. I probably wouldn't if his ADP was like 50. Kind of breaking my own rules for Bust now because I'm just trying to get more thoughts out there. That's I don't know. I feel like what's Arenado's best case scenario in St. Louis? I'm thinking like 280 average, 35 homers.
I mean, the best case scenario is what Matt Holliday did, which was just basically stay the same hitter after leaving Coors Field. Him and Larry Walker are the two who stand out as the two guys who left Coors elite hitters and were still elite hitters after that. But
they were elite, but Holliday was more like a second, third round type elite hitter versus a first round type, right? I mean, he didn't have another 36 homer season like he had in Colorado.
He lost. Yeah, he wasn't quite as good. There were injuries as well, but yeah.
Yeah, and he wasn't a 320 to 340 hitter. He was a 280 to 300 hitter. He lost some production. He was still elite. And I'm saying the same thing for Arenado, 280 with 35 homers. It's just, Ozuna is going later than that. I think he's very likely to do the same thing. Yeah. Eloy Jimenez is going later than that. I think he's very likely to do this. There's like a lot of hitters, and that's the best case scenario for Arenado. I keep thinking people aren't taking into account the shoulder injury he was dealing with last year. And he says he's feeling better, but it's not like there's a difference between comfort, I feel better, and I have all my strength back, which I'm not even sure he'd be able to tell. And he hasn't put on a power display in spring training or anything. I mean, that's not necessarily meaningful, but I'd feel a lot better if he had,
How far does Arenado have to fall, Scott, for you to actually consider taking him?
Outside the top 50, he has to fall behind. So top 50, you got like Tim Anderson there, Kenta Maeda, Pete Alonso's right there. Like, I think that's the range you'd have to. I'll just say outside the top 50, I'd consider Arenado.
A few other names. Luis Castillo is at ADP 40 on ESPN, whereas it is 26 on CBS. That is, I mean, it might be all Scott there because I like Castillo too, but we
points leagues in general too.
Yeah, we do a lot of points leagues on CBS, and Castillo is 40th on Yahoo as well. So I do think if you can get him in the 4th round of a 12-team league, definitely undervalued on those websites. Vladimir Guerrero Jr. is at 42 on ESPN versus 50 on CBS, 46 on Yahoo. So he's 10 spots higher than the overall ADP for Vlad Jr. That ADP is 52.2. So he's a little bit higher on ESPN. Adalberto Mondesi is at pick 55 on ESPN. That is 31 on CBS, 28 on Yahoo. So I don't know if there are just a lot of points leagues going on ESPN, and maybe that's why Mondesi is this low. But, man, if you play in any type of categories league, whether it's head-to-head or roto, and Mondesi even slips to the 4th round in that type of format on ESPN, definitely should be looking in that direction. We have not talked about this recently. I think maybe you briefly mentioned it once, Chris, but about Zach Gallen. He is at ADP 56 on ESPN. That's 47 on CBS, and that's 51 on Yahoo. So he's the lowest of the big three sites on ESPN at 56. And they're talking about a potential innings limit for Gallen. So do you believe that? I mean, how many innings would you tentatively project for Zach Gallen this season?
He's definitely, not in that group who I think can go 200. He did in 2019, he threw a bunch of innings between the majors and minors. It was 171. So I think he could get to that level again. But I think, that's probably closer to the ceiling than it is for some other pitchers being drafted in that range. So I've cooled off on him a little bit.
They didn't get into specifics, I don't think, when they were talking about limiting his innings. They just, talked about how they need to be careful with the jump for him specifically. And it was enough for me to drop him behind Brandon Woodruff. I had him ahead of Woodruff before. I was already kind of teetering on that. Mm-hmm. So I dropped Gallen behind Woodruff.
And the way Torey Lovolo talked about it was, quote, everybody needs to be mindful of the workload they had last year, and jumping from 60 to 70 innings to 200 is not necessarily going to be safe for everybody. He was asked if they would prioritize maybe skipping a turn, giving him an extra day early in the season, or pulling him from starts early. And he said, yeah, that's exactly right. You guys have been around us long enough. Every once in a while, we jump into a 6-man rotation to give guys an extra day, or we get creative with days off. There's a design in that. As far as the other piece of it, if we're winning a game 9-1 and he's through 5 clean, do I take him out of the game to preserve innings? I haven't thought about that part of the equation. So it doesn't sound like, at the very least, they're not willing to talk about a firm plan. And I would guess, as with most things, we want one number that we can say, okay, Zach Allen's going to get to 180 innings and then stop pitching. That's not how it works. He could sprain his ankle and miss 3 weeks and then have no inning concerns for the rest of the season. It's that kind of thing where, it's all probabilistic. It's all ranges, but the width of the range is wider for someone like Gallen than it is for someone like Max Scherzer. Let's say, barring health, if they're both healthy, Max Scherzer's floor and ceiling are both a lot higher than Gallen's.
Over on ESPN, Nick Castellanos has an ADP of 62. On CBS, that's 81. And on Yahoo, that's 82. So he is a little bit higher in ESPN. But Scott has Castellanos ranked 63rd overall, and I have him 66th. So we are pretty much in line with his ESPN rank, and we'd be all right taking him in that 6th round range for Nick Castellanos. Eddie Rosario is at pick 72 on ESPN. That's 120 on CBS and 118 for Yahoo. That is just a huge discrepancy. So if you play on CBS or Yahoo and Eddie Rosario's just hanging around, that is just fantastic value versus ESPN rank. Anthony Rizzo is at pick 75 on ESPN. That's 99 on CBS and 86 on Yahoo. Matt Chapman is at 88. And so that's about 12 spots higher than his overall ADP. Steven Strasburg is down at 92 on ESPN. So that's 58 for CBS and 61 for Yahoo. So that seems actually like a great value for Steven Strasburg in on that side. And then Keston Hiura is at 94. That's about 25 picks past his ADP in ESPN leagues. And Michael Brantley is at 96 on ESPN, which is 50 spots higher than his ADP, which is 146.2 overall. On Yahoo, mentioned a few of these already, but Arenado and Luis Castillo. Arenado at pick 26, too high. Luis Castillo at 40, too high. Brandon Woodruff at 53. Scott, you took him at pick, I guess that would have been 49 in that head-to-head categories mock draft. But even there, I feel like he's a good value, especially in the 4th round of a 12-team league. Brandon Woodruff at ADP 53.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not that concerned with ADP about starting pitchers specifically because I know there's a finite number of ones that I think are going to be of real value to me. And I know I need a certain number of them. So I kind of just go with the flow. And that happens to be really close where I took Woodruff and where he goes on average. But If it was Kenta Maeda there around pick number 40, the fact that he usually goes 50 something, if he's my next best pitcher and I know I need another pitcher now, and I wouldn't have objections to taking him 10 picks early.
Javier Baez and Yordan Alvarez are both going inside the top 60 picks in Yahoo leagues. And Javier Baez, his actual ADP is 77.8. So he's pulled up about 20 picks. And then Yordan Alvarez is the same thing. His overall ADP across all sites is 80.6. So he's about 21 picks ahead of ADP on Yahoo for Yordan Alvarez. Nelson Cruz, similarly, pick 65 on Yahoo. That's 89.4 overall for his ADP. So he's a little bit higher there.
But it's 2 utility spots in the Yahoo default lineup.
That definitely makes sense to point out. So, if it increases their value, obviously, in leagues with 2 utility spots. Lance Lynn on ESPN is all the way down at 69. And I'm not even a big Lance Lynn fan, but his ADP is 52.4. So he's going about 17, 18 picks later there. Yeah. Yoel Moncada is at 71 on Yahoo. That's 94.6 overall. So he's a little bit higher. Lourdes Gurriel has an ADP of 77. That's 14 picks higher than his normal ADP.
That's surprising that his ADP is 91.
Yes, for Lourdes Gurriel.
Wow, I've got him 58. I didn't realize I was that much higher on him, but I think he's really good. Yeah,
I think Lourdes Gurriel is rock solid, someone that can help you across the board. Jose Berrios is at 91 on Yahoo. That is 77.8 at all other locations, so a bit of a discount there. Chris Bryant is at 94 on Yahoo. That's 113 for other locations. Zach Plesac is all the way down at 95. His ADP is just all over the place. So it's 75 on CBS. Thank you, Scott. 95 on Yahoo for Zach Plesac and 112 on ESPN. So if you play on ESPN or Yahoo, you are getting Zach Plesac at a very good discount. And let's just wrap up with our own ADP here at CBS, see what's going on there. Corey Seager, no surprise, another one that is aided by Scott White. Corey Seager has an ADP on CBS of 22. That is 33.8 on other sites. Yeah, are you actually willing to do that, Scott? Like 2-3 turn in a 12-team league for Seager?
Oh yeah. I am. I might go pitcher if the pitcher's good enough, but I think if it drops past like Luis Castillo, that's not a second-round pitcher in my mind anymore. Normally I'm thinking third round for Corey Seager. We took him in the second in that 15-teamer, but it was a 15-teamer.
Mm-hmm. Luis Robert on CBS has an ADP of 48. There are a lot of points leagues that we do. So I got him a couple of weeks ago. We did a head-to-head points mock, I think in the 8th round. I think normally in a points league, you can start to look for him in the 7th, but in a roto league, Robert usually goes in like the 4th or 5th, the 4-5 turn. So a bit of a value there on CBS. Jose Altuve has an ADP on CBS of 57. No other site has him higher than 80. So
that's what they say. I draft with people from these sites. They never let them fall to 80. Never happens.
Liars. I still think Jose Altuve is one of the better values this season. Zach Greinke on CBS is at ADP 72, and on the other sites combined 97.4. So he is going higher on our site, and again, lots of points leagues, and Greinke does excel in that format. Dinelson Lamet has an ADP on CBS of 87. Overall, that is 100. So he should probably fall a little bit further now that it looks like he's not going to be ready for the start of the season. Again, that's Dinelson Lamet. Giancarlo Stanton, one pick later at pick 88. Again, this one's aided by Chris, so thank you for actually taking.
How am I more impactful on Paddock than Greinke when I'm the only person who ever drafts Greinke?
But I mentioned Stanton. I didn't mention Paddock.
Oh yeah, but either way.
Well, yeah, I mean, I guess you ate both.
Greinke's more my guy this year than Stanton is. That's all I'll say.
Stanton's always your guy.
Yeah, but
let's see. Where do you actually have him? You have him 64th. Yeah. Scott has him 94th. I have him 92nd. Chris has Giancarlo Stanton 64th. Stick to your guns, man. I appreciate it. A few other names here. Chris Paddock is going at pick 89. That one might actually be because of me. So there you go. We're all influencing ADP. Wilson Contreras is all the way up at 95. He's going inside the top 100 picks on CBS. That is 110.8 across all other formats. Wilson Contreras entering a contract year has looked phenomenal so far in the spring. Carlos Correa, like his teammate Jose Altuve, is higher on CBS, 96, and he is 120.6 on all the other sites combined. And Patrick Corbin, this one's interesting. His ADP is 97 on CBS. Scott, I don't know. You're going to have to explain this one to me because you lowered him. But Patrick Corbin, 97 on CBS, 136 on ESPN, 137 on Yahoo.
Well, you're giving us credit for these players' ADP for the most part. When I'm sure it's mostly projections, which we have nothing to do with.
True.
And I would guess projections built up use the starting point as Corbin's 3-year average, which obviously the first 2 years were really good.
Yeah.
If you just think he's toast, like I'm kind of leaning, then you're obviously going to come in lower than the projections.
And that is a great time to remind everyone, Scott, that when you do a draft on CBS, the first thing you should do is you see a little drop down arrow that says projections. Hit that. Click on Scott White's rankings. Click on Chris Towers' ranks. Click on my ranks if you want to, but just use the rankings. Don't use the projections. That's the last thing that I will add there. All right, we had a lot today. I think we're getting a lot done. Scott, you mentioned that your sleepers, breakouts, and bust 3.0 are on the site. That will be tomorrow's podcast. So we will update everyone on what's going on there. Chris, if you have any updated sleepers or breakouts that you want to talk about, we can do that as well. For Scott and Chris, I am Frank. Thank you all for listening and watching Fantasy Baseball today. We'll be back again tomorrow. Bye.